And in today's video session, we will discuss about what is static and dynamic programming, and what are the functions and methods in Scala, what is class and objects in Scala, and what is the main difference. Okay, there are many differences between class and objects. Okay, but we will see by example, okay, how the class and objects are different in Scala. And at the end, we will also explore about what is the field, okay, like variable, integer we define, right, inside a function or a method. So we will look into all these aspects in today's video session. So without any further ado, let's start. First, let's explore what is static and dynamic programming in Scala. Okay, so I think this is not required, okay, because Scala is a statically typed language. So uh, you need to understand that there could be two possibility whenever you write a program. Let's say you have written a program and you are compiling that program, okay, and then you would be running that program. So you have two stages, okay. Behind these stages there are many procedures like processing. Pre-processing would be there, the linking would be there. You don't need to get into that much detail, but at the user end or being a programmer, you perform two tasks manually. First one is compilation and second one is the execution of that program. So if type checking errors can be detected during compile time, it means you have done some mistakes in the type, okay, and then such error can be detected during the compile time. Then it is called the statically typed language. If a language promotes the dynamic kind of a dynamic typed language would be giving you this liberty that during the compilation time the type checking would not be performed. Okay, the type checking would be performed during the execution of the program. Okay, so both like dynamic and the static would have different pros and cons. Okay, we are not supposed to discuss those pros and cons over here. It just we need to understand the difference between static and dynamic programming. Okay, so you can pause this video and go through what I have written. I'll discuss this point in detail. Okay, like Java, C++, and Scala, they are all statically typed. It means whenever you write a program and then you compile, so all the type checking would be performed during the compilation. So until unless you fix those errors, you wouldn't be able to execute that program. So this is the same thing I have written over here. Okay, until unless you are not fixing those errors, okay, you wouldn't be able to execute that code. Okay, that is why it is called statically typed. So Java, C++, and Scala, they all are like statically typed languages. Okay, dynamic type, what are the example of dynamic type? Python or JavaScript. So whenever you write programs in Python or JavaScript, the you don't need to compile these programs, okay, by yourself. Okay, the computer would check all kinds of errors during the execution of the program. So in Python you simply write the program and you run it. So there are no two stages for the developer. Okay, what are the different tasks behind what you during the execution? You don't need to get into that much detail, but you just need to understand that in dynamically typed languages you don't need to compile. Okay, you just need to execute what you have written, and whatever the error, type checking or runtime errors or any sorts of error, let's say null pointer exception or any sort of exception, would be detected during the execution of that program, not the compilation time. So this is the difference between static and dynamic programming. Next, we will discuss what are the methods or the functions. Okay, what are the methods and functions in Scala? So if in general terms we talk about, then the methods and functions are same. Okay, but in Scala this is a little different. Okay, we never say objects functions. Okay, this is wrong. We always say objects methods. So whenever we talk about methods or the functions in terms of objects, we always use method. Okay, the name for what the logic we have written as a block, we always refer to that block as a method, not a function. But in general, we can say this is a function. Okay, but when it comes to object, then we have to refer that a block as a method. Okay, so how to define a function and a method we will discuss, but there are two ways. Okay, I hope you are aware about these function declaration and definition, so I don't need to go in that much depth, but I'll discuss about the syntax, how to declare a function and how to define a function. In short, if I want to say what is the difference between function declaration and definition, function declaration is just about the parameters, okay, and the return type and the function name. But function definition is when you provide the body to that declaration. So how to declare a function is you have to use def. Okay, def is the definition. But in declaration also we use def because we are not going to provide the body over here. Then you use the name of the function. Then the parameters would come. The list of parameter would come over here. Then the colon would come, and then the return type. So if you want to write in a language and in Scala, this would be the example def first function. You can change the name and the parameter like this. You use a and colon int is the type. Okay, this is how you write. And then you simply after colon you have to give the integer or let's say anything as a return type. So this is how you declare a function. Okay, how to define? Simply add body over here. Okay, because what is missing from this function declaration is there is no body attached to the function. Okay, so when we attach, as you can see, you just need to write equal and then curly braces, and inside that you simply type the body of a function. So what could be the example? Let's say I have created an object add. Okay, and in that we have a definition. Definition means we have a function which has a and b as a parameter and integer as a return type, and equal to curly braces, and we are providing the body where we are defining a variable. Where is the variable? Sum is the variable name. It is integer type. This is how you define a variable, a value to a variable equal to 0. It means sum is a variable type which is int type, and the value of sum is 0 initially. A and b you are getting from the addInt method. Okay, and then you are it is returning the sum. Okay, so this is about the function definition because we have provided the body. So if I want to execute this code, okay, so see, this is the function. I have taken the same example. Add is the object. Okay, and addInt is the function, and main is the main function for this object add. So wherever the main function is returned, the execution unit after compilation would start executing the program from the main method of object. Okay, from this object, main method would be executed at, at the at first of all the main method would be executed. Okay, so in that what we are doing, we are calling this addInt method and we are passing 1 and 2 as a value, as a parameter. So what it would return, it should return 3. Okay, 1 and 2, it would be adding 1 and 2 and returning sum, which is actually integer type. Okay, and after sum 3 would be there. So what I'll do, I have created this function. I'll show you. The name of the function is Scala function dot Scala. So I'll execute this function through terminal. So just hold on. So just a second. So let me check. So I have to execute this Scala function. Where is it? This is that program. So what I'll do is Scala C, this program may take some time. And this is simply warning, you can ignore. One thing you need to notice that the class file, if I look for the class file after compilation, there would be a bytecode, right, of this particular Scala program. So what is that file? Let's explore. As you can see, there would be a dot class file, right? We have to, you can ignore this, okay? We have add dot class file. It means For this program, earlier there was no such class file. It means for this program after compilation, the class file is add.class. This file we can execute like this, add. Okay, but why it has created add.class? Instead it should create Scala function.class, right? So there is a one concept you need to understand here is whenever you have an object, whatsoever the object is there, it is add object. So it doesn't matter what is the name of your Scala function. Okay, what is the name of your class? Okay, whatsoever the name of your file, it would always create the class file using the name of the object. That's why it has created add.class. So what you need to do when you are going to execute, you need to access the name of your object and simply use a Scala and that object, and it would give you the expected output. Okay, so this is all about the function declaration we have covered, function definition we have covered, but you need to understand how to execute and how the execution flow of a particular uh, object and a function. Okay, so first of all, whenever you execute, the execution would take place from the line number 11. Okay, and it will then follow the rest of the execution statements. Okay, uh, if we come to what is next, I think we have covered method and functions in Scala, static and dynamic. Let's come to the classes in Scala. So it is usual that we have classes, we group the similar kind of functions and methods into one class. Let's say if we take an example of uh, car service company. Okay, and there is a class named service. Okay, so service related methods, what we will do, we select all the service related methods and we group them together, and we put all those methods inside this particular class because the class name is the service class. So the use of class is to group similar kind of task into one group or a one particular class. So it is the same concept is there in the Java as well. So if you have a class, you can create many objects or the instances of that particular class to perform all those methods. So let's say if I'm a customer, my car would go to the service company and they would perform all those service methods for me as well. So what is the scenario? They would create a new object of my name, okay, but of that particular service class, and the parameters of my car and everything would be given to all those methods of that particular object. Okay, so the next, let's say the next customer would come. So again, the same service methods will be used, but with a different object. Okay, so the object would be representing the second customer. Okay, so it is the general example I would give for the, whenever it comes to the class, what is object, and how they are grouped together. So I hope the concept of class and the objects are clear. We can create many objects of a particular class, or we can create many instances because we need to pass the different information, and with for different information we want to perform the similar kind of methods and execution statements. So this is all for class definition. When it comes to how to write a class, simply use class instead object. Okay, when you want to create an object in Scala, you use object, and when you want to create class, you use class. But if you remember, in Java, we don't have such thing as object. Okay, we don't need to use object as a keyword. We never use. Okay, because we always use new. Okay, whenever we want to create an instance of a class, we simply create a new object of that class and then we use it, but we never used object keyword as such in the Java. But in Scala it is different. You have provided two facilities, okay, by the Scala developers. First is, if you want to create just one instance of an object, then you can use directly object. Okay, in that, to initiate this whatsoever you have written inside this object, you don't need to use new keyword. Okay, because it's a singleton object. We will see more about this singleton object thing. Okay, but you need to understand that when to use object keyword and when to use class. So whenever there is a general uh, you are defining many methods in a class, you are supposed to create different objects for the same methods inside a class, then you should go for class. But when you want to just have one singleton object, you should use object, because in that whatsoever you return, you don't need to create instance of that object, because it is statically upload all the things what you have written into the execution unit. Okay, so I'll discuss more when we will be performing, when we will be executing all these things in our terminal. But as of now, you just need to understand this is for one instance and this is for many instances. So when you want to create many objects of a class, use class. When you use just one time, this instance would be performed and uploaded into the execution memory for one time, then you should go for object. Okay, as you can see in our example, we have used object over here, not a class, because as we know, the execution would be performed from line number 11, okay, onwards. So it means we don't need to explicitly create the object. We have not created such object of this object, right? Because it is statically uploading everything what we have written over here into the execution unit. An execution unit would understand, okay, it has the main method, so let's just start executing. If you don't have the main method, then it would be difficult to execute the methods. You have the main method, so execution unit would understand, okay, I understand. The execution unit would understand, okay, from line number 11 I need to execute. So the use of singleton object, using the singleton object and the main function, is when you have a simple logic and you don't want to access this logic for other classes as well, you simply go for the object. Generally, what you will be able to see in Scala, you would be able to see like this. Okay, why? Because you have created so many classes, and now what you can do, you can create different objects by using new keywords of a particular class. Let's say the person class you have, okay, so you can create new objects of those classes inside object and inside the main method. So as this object method, sorry, the object content would be uploaded into the execution memory, so it would start executing statements from line number 6, and at line number 7 there would be instance of a new class. So even though the object class would be created one time, but you can create as many objects as you want of any class. But for object, you don't need to create as such object for to access the main method or the method of a function. So we have written addend. It means it would be executed according to what you have written inside the main method. So let's come to this. I think I have written the differences between Scala class and the objects as well, so I'll discuss. But let's come to the object as well. When we use object, it represent the real life entities. Object usually interact by invoking methods, so we are going to invoke the methods of different classes. So we are supposed to create new objects by using new keyword of a class, and then we will call different methods, or we will invoke those methods by using the object of that class. Okay, there are two ways. This is one way to create object of a class, and this is how the singleton objects are created in object and then the name of the object. For that, you don't need to create an explicit object like this by using name and all. What is the difference between class and object? Or in other terms, what we can say, when to use object and when to use a Scala. In order to understand, let's understand the need of object and the class in a Scala. So when it comes to definition, you use class for class, you use object for object. Like object you use over here, then it is called object, and if you use class, it would be a class. This is the simple definition. When it comes to parameter, as you can see, the object is not taking any parameter. As you can see, there is no such parameter over here, But if you look into the class is taking parameter. It is the ability of a class to get the parameter which would help the class to use the constructor. Okay, so as you are not able to see over here, but it is manually setting x and y, okay, to xc and yc. Okay, this is the manual. You can do it by calling the constructor and Scala as well. So in class, there is a facility you can pass you, or you can access the parameter during the object creation. So this is object creation, and during the object creation, I'm passing the variable. I'm not specifically, uh, you know, setting the variables. During the object creation itself, the values to x and y will be assigned, and later on we can call the uh, methods written inside the classes. Second point is clear. Instances, I have already told you, when it comes to object, you would only be able to create just one instance, okay? And it would happen automatically by the execution unit. You don't need to do anything. When it comes to class, you can create as many as objects by using new keyword and with different name of the object. Let's come to the singleton and multiple inheritance. This is the same thing. You can get what I have just discussed is when you create just one instance, it means it is related to object. And when there is a need of creating many objects, in future you think that many different user would create different objects of the same features we have added into this class, then you should go for the class keyword. Okay, a class can have an ultimate number of unlimited number of instances, whereas the object has just one instance created. There is another very important thing is it is created lazily. It means until unless you are calling, you are executing the object uh, of inside Scala, it will not be invoked because it is a lazy execution. Okay, I have already discussed this thing in a previous like video sessions. You can go and check. You create singleton objects just once, one instance using the keyword object instead of class keyword. Okay, this is simple. Inheritance, this is another important thing about object and class. In class you can extend by using we will see how to extend a class. Let's not go into depth, but when you are using object, you are not supposed to, and you will not be able to extend the object. But when you're using class, you can create subclasses of that particular class, and it would become the super class. So with class it is possible, with the object it is not. So inheritance is possible in multi instance kind of a feature of a language. So this is all for the what to say, the class and object. Let me see, I think I have created some program. Okay, so this is the program I have written. Let's focus on that. There is a class called student, and in that, as I told you, that it can get the parameters during the object creation. I have used the same example over here. It has add, okay. It has object, which is university, and in that I am using the main method. And the execution after the compilation, and if I execute it, the execution would start from 16 line. In that, the 17 line that is creating a new object of this class for these parameters, let's say 11, 20. Okay, so for that it is creating let's say for different variables it would create different object. Okay, and it is setting x and y. Okay, as you can see, these dx and dy would be adding up with the previous x and y we set during the object creation. So if I simply execute it, okay, so let me execute this. Scala Scala class and just hold on. Okay, so it is printing everything. It is x location is 20, 30, 40, 50. Just hold on a second. I think I have it. Class and object. So if you can see, it is adding 10. It is expressing, actually setting x as a 10. Okay, and oh, actually we have used just one. That's why. Okay, otherwise it would add 10 and 10 into these, and the sum would be different. So let's compile. I think we have just executed Scala. Let's understand what is the dot class file it has created. So it has created this university dot class. So when we are using Scala, we have to use this university dot class. So we don't need to do that. As you can see, 2030, 2131, and 2232. Now it has passed all according to our concept. You need to always make sure whenever there is a class or there is object, always the file would be the dot class file would be created according to the object you have taken, not the file name. Okay, so this is all for class and object. If you have any doubt, you can comment down below. Okay, let's come to the last part. This is the field in Scala. So field is not different than the variables we define and declare. Okay, so when if you have a class, okay, you use var keyword with any name, and then you can define a string, integer, or anything. So this is the flexibility with the Scala. You can assign, and then according to what you are assigning after that, what you can do, you are simply telling that what is the value is being assigned to that variable. Either you can use where or you can use well. Okay, uh, if you are not typing private over here, okay, probably it is not very important as of now, but you just need to be aware during the interviews they may ask that if you are writing simply private, it is actually encapsulating this variable. It is making the access of this variable by this class only. But there would be another difference in a Scala. If you write private, it means you have to create your own getter and setter of this of this variable. So if you are not using private, it means the Scala compiler would generate getter and setter. If you remember in Java, there is a if you define a variable and then to set and get the value of that variable, there is an option inside the any ID that you go to right click and then source and then you set the getter and setter for that variable. In Scala, you don't need to until unless you type private. In that private, you have to type your own getter and setter. That is the only thing. So as you can see, there is an object person object. Okay, there is a main method inside that, and there is a variable where person. And the type of where person is defined during the write. What you have written right side, it is actually the object of person class, right? And inside person there is a name, which is this is the name you are setting. Person name is the you are accessing the variable inside the person object, and then you are setting, you are printing, and then you are again updating. Okay, just there is one difference between well and where. You need to remember that variable declaration as where can be reassigned. It means as we have written where, then this is possible. We have assigned over here and then we have reassigned again. But when it comes to well, you are not supposed to do this thing. You cannot reassign the string or any value to the variable or the field you have already declared in the Scala. Okay, so this is the field information. As you can see, I think in our example also, these are all fields. Okay, these are all fields. These are also field. We have used value, but we cannot reassign this pt1 to any other objects. Well and where is a different thing. As you can see, we can reassign the value to where as well. So guys, in today's session we have covered static and dynamic programming. What are those statically and dynamically typed programming like Python, JavaScript, Scala, and Java? Method and function and difference we have seen. Class in Java, we have seen object in Scala. We have seen the fields of in Scala. We have also seen the differences, and also we have practiced all these things. We have created different examples of individual object class and fields. Okay, and I hope you wouldn't be facing any issue. Okay, even if you have doubt, you please comment down below to this video. Okay, and Thank you so much and have a good day.